This might be the most alarming thing that's come out of the Trump administration so far, because if you're just somebody who has any kind of presence online and you talk about how you don't like this administration or the policies it's enacting, you might be in great danger. You might also be in great danger for simply being pro-trans, or having too many unpopular leftist beliefs, at least unpopular among conservatives. Because the White House and Donald Trump just posted the 2026 White House United States Counterterrorism Strategy pamphlet. It's like 20 pages long. It's not big. Don't worry. We're not gonna be reading 100 pages of bullshit here. It's like 16 pages. It's not that long. But this came out and has spurned a lot of conversation for very valid reasons. It's unbelievable and insane. So I thought we'd go ahead and give it a read because it says things such as, "We will find you and we will kill you," directed towards, leftists and, trans activists. So yeah, we got some important stuff to discuss here. This is pretty serious. So we start with the presidential foreword.
When I returned to the White House on January 20th, 2025, 4 years of weakness, failure, surrender, and humiliation under the last administration came to an end. Today, our nation is strong, our borders are secure, and the United States is respected all over the world. We are once again putting America first.
That is a Nazi slogan used by the KKK back in the day, and the Nazi Party.
As part of my commitment to defending America from all enemies, foreign and domestic, we are once again working to crush the threat of terrorism. Within 43 days, we apprehended the terrorist mastermind of the attack on Abbey Gate in Afghanistan that left 13 American service members dead. In just 1 year, we brought back 106 American hostages from captivity abroad without paying a single dollar to their captors. We designated key chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood of the terrorist groups they have always been. We mobilized the Department of Homeland Security to remove illegal alien criminals and jihadist sympathizers from our country. We ended the war in Gaza, secured the release of all remaining hostages, and began the process of ensuring Gaza can no longer serve as a haven for terrorism and extremism by bringing security and prosperity to the region through the Board of Peace.
He has not brought security or prosperity to the region. He plans to bomb Gaza until it's nothing and then build beach resorts there for boomers that like to go on their Israeli vacations to just lounge on the beach.
Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Epic Fury have dealt devastating blows to the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, the sinister regime in Iran, to ensure they can never have a nuclear weapon. At the same time, my administration has put an unprecedented focus on dismantling threats to the American homeland and our hemisphere. We are no longer permitting the cartels and the gangs who have poisoned millions of Americans to freely operate in our region or smuggle their drugs, guns, or untrafficked women and children into our country. Last year, I rightfully designated the deadly cartels as terrorist organizations and began using the strength and power of the U.S. military to stop and destroy their operations. Our armed forces also demonstrated their incredible power and skill by capturing the narco-terrorist outlaw Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro. A very bad guy. We don't like him. We don't like him very much. We got him locked up. Bringing him to face American justice. We will not let cartels, jihadists, or the governments who support them plot against our citizens with impunity. Sorry, I'm kind of retarded. Terrorists of any kind will not be allowed to find safe harbor here, at home, or attack us from abroad.
I'm sorry, guys. I gotta do the Trump impression. I've never had this much of Trump's words, supposedly Trump's words, to read, okay? We've never had this much. We've never had this much.
Our new U.S. counterterrorism strategy is a return to common sense and peace through strength. As I said after our first successful counterterrorism mission, just days after I was sworn back in office, if you hurt Americans or are planning to hurt Americans, we will find you and we will kill you.
Well, that is definitely a message. I know that he's directing it at, terrorist groups. At least that's how he words it. But definitely a little, on the nose, on his face. Maybe not the kind of presidential messaging we're looking for. Peace through strength is crazy shit. That is some actual, Nazi... That is some actual Nazi shit. I'm not going to read the whole thing in Trump's voice, because my throat might rip itself apart if I do that. Under the Trump administration, protecting the United States and our citizens is once again the goal of our national security and foreign policy. That is what we mean by America First. America First is a wide variety of components, from securing our borders to bringing jobs back to America. Neither of these things have actually happened, by the way, not to any degree that the far right like. That's the hilarious thing, is that most right-wingers believe Trump is cucked on the border now and isn't following through on what he promised. All to the benefit of the American people. This is from Trump, who just recently said that the economic situation of Americans does not ever cross his mind. Literally yesterday, by the way. Counterterrorism is a core part of the national security mission, and its primary objective is to protect Americans from being harmed by terrorist groups and to deter and undermine the support they receive from enemy actors. Additionally, we recognize that a new type of domestic terrorism has emerged, driven by violent extremists who have adopted ideologies antithetical to freedom and the American way of life. Our counterterrorism operations will be executed apolitically and founded upon reality-based threat assessments. Our counterterrorism powers will not be used to target our fellow Americans who simply disagree with us. We will not permit the weaponization of America's unparalleled counterterrorism capabilities for partisan purposes and in contravention of every American God-given right. We would never do that. The fact pattern under the Biden administration was clear. Individuals at the highest level of the U.S. government used their significant powers to politically target individuals in the interests of those they favored, wanted to keep in power, or to help win elections. So, Trump's saying they won't do any of those things, but Biden already did those things, so if they do end up doing those things, that's just because Biden already did it. Millions of Americans have lost confidence in the rectitude of the most powerful elements of our federal government. The national security apparatus of the United States. Wow, really? Americans loved and trusted the national security apparatuses of the United States, because I think those might be some of the most unpopular parts of the U.S. government. That confidence can only be won back when counterterrorism is executed, uninfected by politics. And if those who use their counterterrorism powers as a weapon against the innocent pay the full judicial cost for their crimes against the civil rights of innocent Americans. As President Trump stated, in his 2025 National Security Strategy, the departments and agencies of the United States government have been granted fearsome powers. Those powers must never be abused, whether under the guise of de-radicalization or protecting our democracy or any other pretext. When and where those powers are abused, abusers must be held accountable. A radical shift is therefore needed in U.S. counterterrorism, as demonstrated by our successes in the first year of the second Trump administration. Oh yes, many successes. There's been a lot of successes when even his own supporters criticize him for not doing enough. There must be so many. Under the leadership of President Trump, America is again the world's most powerful nation, with the largest economy in history, the most advanced technologies, and the bravest and most skilled warfighters the world has ever seen. This newfound strength has been amply demonstrated by historic operations such as the neutralization of the Iranian nuclear threat under Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Epic Fury, and the arrest and rendition of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro under Operation Absolute Resolve. But the terrorist threat has changed. We face new categories and combinations of violent actors that make the established ways of doing counterterrorism insufficient or obsolete. We face a multiplicity of deadly threats from terror groups and non-state actors, often secretly supported by governments who wish to undermine us. Currently, we face three major types of terrorist groups: narco-terrorists and transnational gangs, legacy Islamist terrorists, and violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. We can defeat every single one of these groups, but the threat is significant and pervasive. The borderless America created by the Biden administration was so badly exploited by threat actors that during one 12-month period of the previous administration, more Americans died as a result of the illicit drugs flooded into the country by the cartels than the U.S. servicemen killed in combat since 1945. That is an existential threat that President Trump does not tolerate. Mind you, the majority of drugs in America, they come from Americans. America. They're not being shipped into here from, like, Mexico. Our counterterrorism strategy. Our counterterrorism principles. America's new U.S. counterterrorism strategy is driven by the principle that America is our homeland. Americans should be safe to live their lives without the fear of terror attacks, the threat of jihadists, the flooding of our communities with deadly drugs at the hands of foreign narco-terrorists or violent left-wing extremists who have adopted radical ideologies antithetical to the principles upon which our republic was founded. Additionally, we will continue to ensure our counterterrorism structures are not weaponized against the American people, as prior administrations allowed. This is right here exactly what you need to know to guarantee they are going to weaponize this against their political opposition. Not only are they saying they're not going to do that, but that the opposition already did it. They're already setting up their pivot to start doing it and then blame it on the fact that the Biden administration already did it. Now, they didn't. The Biden administration didn't do that. But by that point, that argument is already long foregone. You know, like at that point, you've already lost. When your government thinks anti-fascists could be considered terrorist, I believe that means your government is fascist. Yes, that is true. Yes, that is a pretty good point. When it comes to state actors, our priority is to identify and fully degrade the lines of covert support provided to cartels and Islamists by our adversaries. This includes overt actions such as sanctions, shadow fleet oil tanker interdiction, and covert operations to make funding and state sponsorship very costly to inimical regimes, including their provision of dual-use technologies, especially drones, advanced conventional weapons, or the precursor chemicals used to make deadly narcotics. These CT operations include offensive cyber operations against those planning to kill Americans who support those plotting to do so. Or those who support those plotting to do so. Our CT strategy first prioritizes the neutralization of hemispheric terror threats by incapacitating cartel operations until these groups are incapable of bringing their drugs, their members, and their trafficked victims into the United States. At the same time, we will continue to find and remove the cartel and gang members who were let into our country under the Biden administration, always blaming Biden, and remove the cartel and gang, while using FTO designations to strangle the commercial and logistical sinews of their organizations. Jihadi terrorists have continued to plot against and kill Americans, in part because of the failed forever war policies of prior Republican administrations, the empowerment of terror-sponsoring regimes like Iran under the Democrat administrations, and past unwillingness to challenge Islamist ideologies head-on. As a result, our second priority is the targeting and destruction of the top 5 Islamist terror groups that have intent and capabilities to execute external operations against the United States, starting with Al-Qaeda. especially its most aggressive subgroup, Al-Qaeda, in the designation of the Muslim Brotherhood, MB. We will continue maintaining pressure on the global jihadi movement until global MB enterprises can no longer recruit and fund terror against the United States. Our nation has not been well served by its intelligence community. Our nation has not been well served by its intelligence community. Well, one thing I'll point out, by the way, is so much of what Trump does is just put down the work of so many nonpartisan government workers going back decades, all because they were working under a Democrat president, you know?
America is garbage. It gets nothing done. It's trash under Biden.
It's like, meanwhile, you've got so many nonpartisan workers who make the cogs of our society, of our government, actually turn, who do their job no matter who's president, until Trump comes along and starts mass firing them. You know, it's like, and meanwhile, the same people who do the mass firing go and put out propaganda posts like this, claiming that they are nonpartisanly just searching for people who are dragging the government down, that are dragging America down, who are hurting it from the inside. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has never done anything close to anything as valuable as what these nonpartisan government workers have done their entire careers. So yeah, this goes on. Our nation has not been well served by its intelligence community, not true, which has been mired in old ways of looking at threats or has been actively weaponized by its leadership as a political tool, whether plotting against conservative Catholics attending traditional Mass in Virginia, parents standing up for their children at school board meetings, members of Congress, or President Trump and his associates. This administration will continue to prohibit the intelligence community from being used politically against innocent Americans, as real threats were ignored or underplayed. Americans have witnessed the politically motivated killings of Christians and conservatives committed by violent left-wing extremists, including the assassination of Charlie Kirky by radical groups who espoused extreme transgender ideologies. So this is where things start to get a little scary, because after paragraphs of talking about radical Islam and like jihadists that want to bomb America and how we're going to fight against them, we then pivoted into talking about violent left-wing extremists and extreme transgender ideologies that killed Charlie Kirk. So it seems like it's implied that he's putting like left-wingers that don't like him on the same level as literal jihadists. For those that don't know, jihad means holy war. To be a jihadist means you're literally waging a holy war against, those that you are against, those that you're opposed to. So yeah, we're putting like anybody on the left on the same level as jihadist is immediately trying to evoke a justification for violent response. I hope Donald Trump shits himself on camera. Didn't he literally do that? Wait. Hold, I'm pretty sure he literally did that.
This Biden term is going to be a thing of the past, and I'm so proud to be part of
And
this.
fellas, some great things happening, right?
Yeah.
Marty, there's great, really great things happening, I hear. And some pretty big announcements over a short period of time, right?
Yep. Moving drugs over the counter so you don't need a prescription.
Yeah, right.
Naloxone, which treats opioid, is one of those drugs. And we're being proactive with synthetic 7-OH, a new opioid that's showing up. And we're working with the DOJ on addressing that because chemists are coming up with new opioids faster than the government has been able to keep up. We're going proactive on these new chemicals.
That's great. Now I hear fantastic things. Thank you all very much. We really appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Oz. He's doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
So people were pointing out, like, you can hear little like fart noises. Like, it's really weird, but what people were pointing out and talking about was like the faces being made by everyone around him when it happened.
Appreciate it. Thank you, please. Thank you.
Mr. President, can you respond to the new Fox poll that says people think ISIS's tactics are too aggressive?
And they wave everyone out of the room really fast.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Are we gonna flip for this, or what are we gonna do? Oh, sorry.
Multiple reporters said that it suddenly smelled like shit in there, and when you watch, when you watch the reactions,
Active with synthetic
Watch your
7-OH,
face.
a new opioid that's showing up, and we're working with the DOJ on addressing that because chemists are coming up with new opioids faster than the government has been able to keep up. We're going proactive
she, like, looks
on these
at
new
him like-
chemicals.
That's great. No, I hear fantastic things. Thank you all very much. We really appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Oz. He's doing a fantastic.
like even RFK is like not looking through it. Like there are a lot of people that were claiming a few months ago that he shat himself here. I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that there were a lot of people. There were a lot of people saying that he shat himself. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. He's an old man. Old men shit themselves sometimes. It happens. You know, it happens. He took a big, beautiful dump. Big, beautiful BM. I'm going to hell for that one.